Okay, so I think this is the second or third YouTube video I've made today. This is kind of crazy. I actually am still on vacation, my last day of vacation, but I love this stuff, so it's easy to talk about. I just got this question, and I thought that to me, this already just made sense, and I could be totally off base, but someone just asked me a question. They said, at what point do you think that daily divs, in your opinion, at what point do you think that it could or would collapse? So I want to explain this, and please understand, I mean, I may be totally off base. I don't think I am, but I may be totally off base. The only thing that I see that will cause a collapse of daily divs at this very moment is the lending platform. That is the only thing, and I'll explain why in a moment. And again, you don't have to agree with me. You can just hear me out and what I'm saying. There's some things I love about this platform. I love that they're organized well. Someone else said they love the name. I think the name sounds good from a marketing standpoint. I think the exchange game is right in line with the P3D. In fact, I think it's the same. It is a clone. Let me just call it for what it is. It's a clone. It's identical. It's a clone. So the exchange game is with different numbers. So obviously I'm not a fan of clones in general, but they tried to become original. They tried to add some games, marketing wise. All that stuff is good. They got all the languages set up. It easily translates well. They have Telegram. Over in the lending game, they have WeChat, which they're clearly trying to make themselves available to other markets, etc., etc. So all that aside, it was a clone. It was kind of like, hey, let's see where it goes, what it does. But then they came out with this lending platform, and literally I came across daily divs and I was like, oh, it's just a clone. And then the very next day I see the lending platform. And let me just say this. I believe that there's a lot of people who are like, in fact, knowledgeable people have said things like, the exchange game is good because they charge more. They charge 10%. Or, I mean, they charge more than 10%. Like P3D, they charge, 20% or 22 or 25, whatever, however you want to calculate it and what you're talking about. But they charge a huge fee in and out. First of all, what makes the smart contract platforms good is volatility. And there's a lot of games and stuff that's designed to help increase volatility. But volatility is based off not just the everybody buying in. Volatility is based off everybody buying in and selling, buying in and selling, buying in and selling. I actually think the huge percentages prevent people from selling. Long term, that's not good. No one's going to use a token that looks like, just to make a transaction, I lose almost 50% going in and coming out. Nobody's gonna, that's not gonna be usable long term. I actually am one of the few people that I've heard even discuss, I think P3D, Proof of Weekends 3D, would be even better served if they had a lower percentage. Now, I don't know where the number is, but there's a sweet spot. Maybe it's 5%, maybe it's 2%, maybe it's 3%, maybe it's 8%, maybe it's 7%. There is a number in there which, what you would want to find in the perfect world is the sweet spot from the commission fee paid is not too high that people are willing to get in and out quickly if they want to or need to. And that's really what you want. You want a lot of people transacting in and out. But you want to have a purpose or a use case where people choose to transfer in and out. And that's where some of these other projects that feed in, I think, can kind of come alongside of that. Now, I don't have a problem with projects that cause P3D, for example, to get locked up, like games like Sacrificed and Raffle 3D, which I've talked about in my previous videos. That's a different concept. But from a use case scenario where people are, well, take the games, for example. A lot of the games, like Raffle 3D and stuff like that, if you notice well, not Raffle 3D, Sacrifice would be a good example. You bet one to get 20%. You bet one to get 20%. The percentage lost in that game is actually very minor. Yeah, you can lose 0.1, but you get dividends, and you're only going to lose your full bet 20% of the time. I mean, in the world of, so that's right in line with the world of quote unquote gambling games. And I'm assuming some of Daily Div's other games might be in line with that as well. You look at Zephyr, which is another clone, or you look at, Zephyr's more of a traditional gaming application DApp that's also a clone, but you look at their traditional games, their percentages and their fees are right in line. You're not betting 10 and if you win you're getting back 8. That wouldn't work. So what I'm getting at is actually using the smart contract, in my opinion, needs to be in line. It needs to be very useful and it needs to be easily to transact in and out. But neither here nor there. Proof of Weekends 3Ds at 10%. They're the lowest so far. And I actually think that has something, that and them being first also has something to do with them going as far as they've gotten. So far, the aggressive contracts, 15%, 20%, plus 20+% exchange fees, they haven't lasted. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One is they kill volatility. They cause people to put tokens in, and after the market's done putting tokens in, you realize it ain't doing nothing, and then eventually people get bored and they just pull it out, they take a loss. And yes, high fees are paid, high commissions are earned, but the commissions earned from the high fees never offset two things. You have to offset two things. You have to offset your own loss in your transaction and the devaluation of the token as price is dropping. So I hope that makes sense to you. Sorry, I went down that bunny trail, but I want to talk about at what point does daily divs potentially not work. Like the exchange game is sustainable as long as people are willing to transact with it. The lending is where it's not sustainable ever. And anyone who says this is sustainable, they're going to have to show me math that does it, that I can't. Let me explain something. You can explain the math today. Keep in mind how every Ponzi scheme works. Every Ponzi scheme starts, it's very simple to make payouts. You look at, Bernie Madoff. I forget what Bernie Madoff average return was, but the guy was returning like 10% a year. So, or 12% or whatever it was. So every Ponzi scheme, in the beginning, it's very easy to make those payments. And it's always easy as long as people don't try to cash out, because you can always show paper, or in this case, you can always show digital money. You can always put numbers on a screen. But when everybody cashes out, that's the problem. Yeah, well, there's a surplus. Well, the surplus will work for now, potentially. I'm not sure how the surplus is calculated, but right now it will work. The math may work today, but it won't work forever, and I want to explain why. They've got things like the card games, and they've got their high 22% or 25% fees or whatever. They've got all this stuff. They've got other games, a lotto game and stuff like that that's going to help. They got the 5% fund fee. They've got all these things that help it stay sustainable today. But after a few weeks, a few months, and BitConnect made it, a couple of years, after you continue to compound enough people compounds, the numbers get so big that they're no longer sustainable. And this is why. Volatility works today. You can pay out the 1% today or the 1.3% today. But after you compound every day the 1.3%, keep in mind that today you earn 1% on your, let's just use 1% to keep it simple. Today you earn 1%. Well, yeah, they can cover that with their volatility. Tomorrow you earn 1% on top of your principal plus your current 1% that you earn today. The day after, you're going to earn compound interest. You're going to earn 1% on the balance, which is compounded over the past 3 days. Then the next day, you're going to earn 1%, and it gets compounded. So after a while, your gains eventually, just go take a compound interest calculator. Just go do that. Go take a compound interest calculator. Look it up online. Look for a daily. In fact, I think it's compounddaily.com. Let me see if I can find it. I'll show you. Okay, so here we are. Let's just say a daily interest rate of 1.3%. In fact, that 0.3% is even more deadly. I mean, if it would have been interesting for someone to attempt this, but they would have needed to try to attempt it, I think, at 0.3 or 0.4 or 0.5. And I still think it would have been difficult to maintain eventually for the same reasons. The compound gets you, but the idea that it's 1.3, I'll just show you some quick numbers. How quickly does 5,000 tokens, it's not dollars, it's tokens, 5,000 tokens, and by the way, in the short to medium term, this is actually good for the value of the token, and I'll explain that in a moment. But 5,000 tokens at 1% daily interest, length of time, let's just do 365 for a year, daily reinvestment, whatever this is, we'll make it 100%. Include weekends, yes. Calculate now. This is 5,000 tokens. What does it do in a year? $5,000 tokens will compound to 500,000 tokens. That appears beautiful, as long as no one actually starts trying to pull anything out of the system. You start cashing out your tokens, there's no way for the system. I mean, these numbers get huge if everybody's doing it. And you'll hear stuff like, well, not everybody's going to hold it in. Not everybody can keep their 5,000 in or whatever, blah, 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 blah. You know, not everybody can do that. And, you know, it's like, it doesn't matter whether people pull out part of it, like 50% of it. It doesn't, yes, that adds volatility. At some point, it is destined to be unbearable. The weight of compounding, there's no amount of volatility in the system that I'm aware of how it could even be possible. Because, and here's why. In every other aspect, in the exchange game, you pull money in and out, you're creating a transaction. This is the DDTs in lending. There's no volatility transaction taking place except on the cash out. And it's at 22%, but that 22 or 25% is never going to come close enough to cover everyone if lots of people decide to start cashing out. It's never going to cover it. Now, how long can it last? Weeks, months, or maybe years. I mean, theoretically, the reason Bernie Madoff got away with his Ponzi scheme for 20-something years is because he was able to cover withdrawals. And not a lot of people withdrew. I mean, he was doing people's retirement accounts. I mean, he had pension funds in with his account. And so it was retirement accounts. People weren't pulling out every day. In crypto, people can change their mind in a flash. But people weren't pulling their money out every day. So it was you know, they were keeping it in there. But at some point here, what happens is most people have some sort of arbitrary goal. I'm going to compound to a certain point, and then I'm going to cash out daily. Well, at some point, the daily cash outs become so big at some point that the system just can't sustain it. And yes, they created a lot of things where when you cash out, you lose 22%. There's a lot of things that help. But all those functions in a lending platform that guarantees, look, it's guaranteed 1.3% a day indefinitely. Why does it have this number here? It just goes to show you that, yes, this proves right here that there is a lifespan. There is a lifespan right here. It cannot go on forever, and that's okay. You just need to recognize it. I'm not saying that this is good or bad. It just is what it is. So the question came to me, how long do I think it can last? Well, it's going to last until the volatility will no longer compensate for the amount of withdrawals coming out of the system. At some point, by the way, I got to explain this one more. I hope this is clear. In the lending side, there's no volatility created except when you sell tokens. So volatility, the profits from volatility is deferred indefinitely until people start withdrawing. That's kind of the Achilles heel, where the reason you can compound essentially forever in the exchange game is because you only earn value from people buying and selling. So you only are able to buy tokens on the exchange game, just like P3D. You can't buy tokens every single day, or you can't buy the same amount of tokens every single day because there's no activity being created. And so when you earn money in P3D, when you earn money in the Daily Divs exchange game, it's because something's happening for that money. In the lending game, there's not any, you're promised a 1.3%, no matter the balance, no matter how much you have, and definitely you can't do that. Look, I hate to go here. I'm going to be that guy. So what is 365? Let's just go for, so let's go for 1,000 days, which isn't even 3 years. Let's just look at the same 5,000 tokens. Oh, it won't go any further. One. Okay, let's go. 999 days. So that's not even 3 years. 5,000 tokens. Where will it go to? Number of days. Oh, they won't even go beyond 365 because just about nothing will last that long. Okay, so we were at 500,000 tokens. Then we'll go to 365. Now, by the way, the argument for things like BitConnect and even ARB, and I'm not trying to argue for ARB because they're not transparent. You don't know what they're doing. They can't even show you after the fact. At least BitConnect attempted to show you their volatility. Now, you could never you could kind of prove some of it, but you could never obviously prove exactly what's going on. But ARB doesn't even show you that. But here's the thing. 365 after on the second year, so we had over 500,000 tokens. 5,000 went to 500,000. Calculate. This number's gonna be nuts. Oh, amount cannot exceed. They won't even do 100,000. Okay, we'll say 100,000 tokens, which, mind you, it was really 5 times that, but we'll do 100,000 tokens. The numbers just get stupid. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, $11 million, and that wasn't even on. I mean, that's just not sustainable. There's no amount of volatility in the system. I don't believe that's going to be created unless listen, I could be full of it. Here's how it could survive, and I say could. I don't think it will because I always think the lending compounding at some point is going to be is too big. But the way that it could survive is if people don't compound for very long. And I think that that's false because human greed causes people to want to keep compounding. But if people don't compound for very long, they keep jumping in and out of the exchange game, they play a lot of the lottery game, they come out with other games and they just keep playing games and keep playing games and keep playing games. Or if the administrator comes along and if he says, hey, it's 20%, but it's a 5% fund tax, if he changes that to 15% and a 10% fund tax at some point, if that's possible, that can potentially help. I mean, but all this stuff I think just kicks the can down the road. At some point, the weight of compounding is just too strong. If they want to see daily divs last, they probably should just end the smart lending. To be honest with you, that's my opinion. I'm not saying that the developer, Jason or whatever his name is, I'm not saying that any of the YouTubers, I'm not calling anyone a scammer. I'm just saying it is my belief that I don't think it can last. And if someone would love to put together a video and show me how they think it can last, even with months and years of thousands of people compounding, even, a big percentage of there's probably some mathematical equation that says, hey, if we can keep it below a certain number here and below a certain number there, we can keep it sustainable. But yeah, I just don't know. I don't know what that looks like. And if people don't pull out, if no one ever pulls out of the lending, then that can make it sustainable a lot longer. At some point, the withdrawals, you can't pull out. Everybody can't be pulling out money, cashing out every single day without it. It just over time it just keeps putting more weight on the system. So I'm going to call it now. I think it's going to eventually go under. That's my guess. Unless they come up with something. It's going to be fascinating to watch. That's all I can tell you. So if you're playing daily divs or any of these, cryptocurrency in general is just crazy and speculative, and it's exciting and that sort of thing. But I just don't think lending platforms are even. I've not seen one that I thought was sustainable. And I will say that they've made a valiant effort to make this one sustainable a lot longer. And as the token price goes up, which that's in the short term to medium term, that's what's beneficial, and that's what I haven't mentioned yet. The lending will lock up tokens for a long time. So therefore, the price of the token is going to continue to go up. That's beneficial in the medium to long term if you're trying to play in this space, but I don't understand how it's even possible to last indefinitely. And someone can please put a comment on any of my videos. I am willing to listen if you want to explain exactly how I'm wrong. And hey, I always stand to be corrected. Thank you so much if you're still watching. Thank you so much.